Have you ever wondered how far the influence of a single person can transform us? Sometimes, an unexpected presence leads us down paths we would never have imagined, leading us to reevaluate values and rewrite our own history. At the height of a crisis that threatens his empire, Will, a businessman accustomed to power and control, finds in Katie, a woman with a calm presence and unwavering determination, the inspiration that changes the course of his life. As he faces difficult choices, the connection between them becomes the turning point in a journey that challenges not only his leadership, but also the concept of success that he has always believed he mastered. Katie arrived at the beginning of her afternoon at work as usual. Will's mansion always had an impeccable shine, reflecting the rigor and coldness of the man who commanded that space. Katie, always attentive and careful, devoted herself to each task with concentration, trying to deliver her best. Working there was not just a way of making a living, but an opportunity that she saw as a stage of personal growth, although she knew that Will saw her as someone with no ambition, beyond fulfilling her domestic obligations. The silence in the hall was interrupted by the sound of the office's double doors opening. Will appeared in front of them, imposing and stern-looking as if his every move had to be calculated so as not to disturb the environment he controlled so much. Katie's posture remained firm, even though a slight hint of surprise appeared in her gaze. Will didn't usually address her unless it was absolutely necessary. But at that moment, he was standing there, looking directly at her. "Katie, I need you to join me tonight for a business dinner," he ordered, in a direct, almost mechanical way. "It's not an invitation, it's an instruction," he added without waiting for an answer. Katie's initial shock quickly turned into an internal calm. She tried to understand what motivated that unexpected order, and at the same time, recognized the unique opportunity that lay ahead of her. A business dinner with Will, the strict businessman known for his calculating and distant profile, represented a rare chance to put herself in a space where, until then, she had been seen as invisible. "I want someone by my side who knows how to behave, someone discreet, who understands their place and avoids giving opinions," he continued, in a tone that made it clear that his expectations of her presence were minimal. Katie listened to every word without flinching, just a slight smile hidden by self-control. That order sounded more like a test than a simple command. It was as if he was trying to prove to Katie that, despite her dedication, she would always be just a voiceless employee. But she recognized something beyond arrogance in his attitude, a subtle urgency, as if he were trying to fill a space with the first person available, without bothering to look for someone who really fit the position. Will then returned to his office, leaving her with the words that seemed to be enough for him. Katie, on the other hand, saw the situation with deeper eyes. She understood that the task ahead would require more than the discretion that Will had imposed as a condition. There was a unique opportunity to reveal facets that had remained hidden until now. She knew she couldn't pass up this chance. How many times have you looked at your own story and wondered if a new beginning was still possible? This feeling of doubt was part of the journey of Will and Katie, characters who, even after so many challenges, discovered how to rewrite their lives and live a unique and transformative connection. With stories like this in mind, I created the ebook The Secret of Mature Romance Stories, to inspire those who want to find love again, with themselves and with others. And for those who get there first, I'm giving it away for free. Yes, as a gift, because I believe that this content can offer a new vision to those who need it, just as it did for Will and Katie. Enjoy it while it's still available. The link is in the first comment of this video. Over the next few hours, each routine task Katie performed took on a more intense meaning. She mentally prepared for dinner, reviewing in her mind the behavior she needed to demonstrate, the calm she needed to maintain, and the sense of purpose she wanted to reinforce. What Will saw as a simple instruction, Katie turned into a milestone. She wanted to prove that she could occupy any space with dignity and intelligence, even if, until that moment, she had only been seen as a maid. Katie finishes her shift, prepares for dinner, and chooses a dress that reflects not only the elegance required for the event, but also her confidence in herself. When she looks in the mirror, she sees a determined and serene woman, ready to face the challenge that has been imposed on her, even if it comes with limiting expectations. Katie approaches the restaurant, observing the soft lights illuminating the imposing facade. The atmosphere exudes a calculated sophistication, reflecting the kind of occasion Will chooses for his business meetings. She arrives with firm but discreet steps, adjusting her posture, knowing that the eyes there will not fail to notice her. In every detail of her outfit, Katie exudes confidence without losing the subtlety that characterizes her. When he spots her, Will keeps his expression neutral, almost impatient, as if her presence represented just another formality to be fulfilled. He bows his head briefly, indicating that they should both enter without much ceremony. For Will, Katie there represents a functional accessory, not a real companion. This perception is echoed in the way he avoids unnecessary interactions, guiding her quickly to the central table, where the investors are waiting with curious and appraising looks. As soon as they settle down, Katie feels the silent pressure of each pair of eyes on her, although she remains calm. Will introduces Katie to the investors with an unassuming tone, mentioning only her first name, with no interest in providing any further details. The nonchalant way he introduces her reflects how much he sees her as a secondary element. For Katie, however, the evening represents a watershed. The investors, for their part, receive Katie's presentation with polite expressions, but some exchange glances among themselves, as if questioning her presence there. This kind of silent judgment does not escape Katie's attentive perception, as she records every detail without reacting. She understands that in their eyes, her place at the table seems unlikely, but this impression only strengthens her resolve to demonstrate the value she carries. The conversation progresses between Will and the investors, with discussions about finances and projections flowing in a technical and objective manner. Katie remains attentive, analyzing every word, following the topics with interest, and picking up on nuances that might otherwise go unnoticed. She knows that sooner or later, attention will turn to her. At one point, one of the investors, Mr. Lewis, looks at Katie with a smile that mixes curiosity and condescension. He looks at her for a long time, as if expecting to find some obvious weakness. Finally, he asks her in a slightly ironic tone, "So, Katie, how do you feel about attending a business dinner like this?" Katie realizes the intention behind the question. A brief silence ensues as everyone waits for a shy answer. However, she decides to face the moment with confidence. Inspired by her own value and her desire to break down barriers, Katie smiles serenely and replies, "I feel grateful for the opportunity to witness the dynamics of an event like this. Looking at the importance of financial decisions, I think that knowing the people behind the numbers is fundamental to any real business." Her words transform the atmosphere at the table. Looks of surprise and curiosity replace the previously indifferent expressions. Will observes the scene with a mixture of discomfort and surprise, not knowing whether to approve or reprimand her stance. Katie, however, maintains her serene posture, aware that she has just conquered a previously unattainable space. Katie's response echoes around the table, causing a brief pause among the investors. She observes the reactions around her, realizing that her comments are making an unexpected impression. Mr. Lewis, surprised, lets out a short laugh with a glint of interest in his eye. "Interesting point of view, Katie," he comments, leaning a little closer to her, as if seeing her from a new perspective. Katie keeps her gaze serene, without a trace of insecurity. For her, this moment represents a milestone. Her thoughts and words take on a special value, something that has remained hidden until now. The expressions of the other investors reflect genuine curiosity and, for the first time that evening, the table's attention turns entirely to Katie. Will, on the other hand, displays a hardened, almost angry expression. He clenches his jaw and avoids looking directly at her, as if trying to ignore her presence, but his discomfort is evident. The situation is out of his control, and Katie's confidence, which he desires to be invisible and silent, emerges as a provocation. Mr. Lewis, apparently intrigued, addresses Katie again, maintaining a challenging tone but now with a hint of respect. You know, Katie, it's not often that we hear a perspective like yours at this kind of event. What else do you think is essential for business? His question represents a door that Katie decides to walk through. She recognizes the opportunity and answers firmly, keeping her gaze directed at the investor. I believe that every business should bring, along with financial success, a positive impact. Numbers don't always reflect everything. People and the surrounding environment are fundamental to the sustainability of any company. A new silence arises around the table. The investors exchange surprised glances and begin to comment among themselves. For them, this response seems a contrast to their initial image of Katie. Will watches the scene with a mixture of impatience and tension. He was expecting a quiet evening with no surprises. However, his date becomes the focus of attention. Katie feels the weight of the moment but remains calm. She takes a firm stance, showing confidence. The sense of challenge and freedom she begins to experience gives her a new vision of her own potential. At that moment, Katie realizes that her role at that table goes far beyond what Will imagines. Katie keeps her posture calm, even under the surprised stares that now surround her. She didn't have to say much, but she knows that her words have brought a new spark to the conversation. Mr. Lewis continues to watch her with genuine interest, while the other investors, previously distracted, now show curiosity. This sudden recognition confirms to Katie that her voice, often underestimated, carries a weight that no one there expected. Every minute, the tension grows for Will. He watches the scene with a mixture of surprise and discomfort, without hiding his annoyance at the visibility that Katie has unexpectedly gained. For him, this attention represents a threat to the rigid control he always exercises in business situations. Katie's independent attitude, which until then he had ignored, now reveals itself with an intensity that defies his own expectations. With a discreet smile, Mr. Lewis turns back to Will. "You've really brought an interesting person to the table today, Will. I feel like this dinner is giving us something beyond the numbers," he comments, still looking at Katie, which accentuates Will's tension. Will, trying to regain control of the situation, adjusts himself in his chair and replies in a forced tone. "Katie knows how to behave and understands the need for discretion, which is why I trusted her to be here. But my aim is not to distract you from your business." Katie hears his attempt to belittle her contribution but remains calm. Contrary to what he expected, she shows poise and maturity, as if his every word only served to strengthen her resolve. For her, the evening takes on unexpected contours. Her value emerges there independently, defying the limits imposed. Mr. Lewis, still interested, makes one more provocation to Will. Maybe the market needs more people like Katie, with a broader vision. Have you ever thought about that, Will? Will stares at the investor with a rigid expression, trying to contain himself. He maintains his posture, but his gaze reveals that the evening has gotten out of hand. Katie, for her part, realizes that every moment there reaffirms a silent certainty about who she really is and how far she can go. Dinner continues with the same tension. Katie, aware of the looks and expectations around her, remains calm. She realizes that her presence and her words have created a new dynamic, a kind of silent battlefield between her and Will. He clearly expects her to back down, to adopt a more submissive stance, but Katie, inspired by the occasion, remains firm in her position. During a brief pause in the conversation, Mr. Lewis seizes the moment to continue including Katie in the discussion. "Tell me, Katie, how do you see the importance of social responsibility projects within a company?" he asks, leaning towards her with obvious curiosity. Katie takes a deep breath and organizes her thoughts before answering. She knows that every word needs to convey clarity and conviction, especially under Will's watchful eye. "I believe that social projects are not just an obligation, but an extension of any company's purpose. They show that financial success also comes with the responsibility of having a positive impact on society," she says, with a serenity that impresses everyone at the table. The fixed, attentive gazes of the investors confirm that Katie's speech has resonated. She observes the reactions and feels that her opinion resonates among those present. Will's discomfort intensifies, reflecting his dissatisfaction when he realizes that Katie has become the center of attention. Unable to contain his tension, he decides to respond critically. "These ideas are beautiful in theory, Katie, but in practice there are realities that are too complex to be solved with good intentions," he says, trying to minimize her. If you're also looking for a chance to rewrite your own story, the ebook The Secret of Mature Romance Stories is available for free on a first-come, first-served basis. Enjoy. Katie remains impassive and continues. "I agree that reality is complex, Will, but that doesn't diminish the need for initiatives aimed at collective well-being. In fact, I see that this complexity makes social projects even more important." The tense silence around the table only reinforces the impact of Katie's words. Will seems to be resisting what he sees as a deviation from control, but he can't find an adequate response. The investors, on the other hand, show approval for Katie's stance and vision, as she sees it as a quiet achievement, proving her ability and determination. At the end of dinner, Will gets up quickly without waiting for Katie. He heads for the exit, showing his irritation with every hurried step and sudden gesture. Katie, aware that the evening has brought unexpected results, accompanies him in silence, respecting his obvious discomfort. She notices that, as they leave the restaurant, he avoids any eye contact, as if trying to distance himself from everything that has happened there. As soon as they arrive at the mansion, Will calls Katie into his office for a private chat, dispensing with formalities. He stands in front of her with a rigid expression and a glint of frustration in his eyes. "What was that all about, Katie?" he asks, his tone laced with barely contained indignation. "I expected you to just follow along and remain discreet, not become the center of attention." Katie maintains her posture without letting the tension interfere with her tranquility. She listens to his words calmly, analyzing each sentence and observing the way he expresses himself, showing a kind of contempt for what she considers an affront. "I just answered the questions, Will. I did what anyone would do in a similar situation," she replies, with a serenity that momentarily diffuses his indignation. Will takes a deep breath, trying to control his tone. For him, the evening was a complete disaster, a reversal of expectations, and Katie has become the symbol of this unwelcome change. Her attitude breaks down the invisible barriers he tries to impose, and he feels he needs to take back control of the situation. "Opinions are not part of what I expect from you, Katie. I need discretion, not prominence," he says, his gaze hardening. Katie stands her ground. "What you saw as leading, Will, was just the sincerity that the investors asked for. I didn't try to attract attention, but I also didn't ignore the opportunity to position myself with integrity." Will regards her answer with growing irritation. He realizes that his words fail to discourage her, and the assurance she shows seems to have an unexpected effect. He feels the weight of challenged authority, while Katie faces the situation with a calmness that reveals her true worth. Will, on hearing Katie's firm words, feels even more irritated. He observes her posture, notices the calmness and security in her gaze as if the situation were under her control, and not his. The sight of this attitude only increases Will's discomfort, as he expected a more submissive and passive reaction from someone he considers to be just an employee. Will decides that decisive action is needed. He approaches Katie, holding her gaze, determined to demonstrate that he still has authority. Without hesitation, he announces his decision in a cold and calculated manner. "Consider this your last day here, Katie. I no longer need someone who oversteps the mark and forgets their role." Katie receives his words without any sign of despair or surprise. She faces Will with the same calmness, without giving in to the impulse to respond with emotion. Instead, she simply nods, accepting the decision with dignity. She recognizes that this moment ends an important cycle, and at the same time, begins a new stage in her life. Leaving Will's office, Katie heads to her room in the mansion and begins to pack her things. For her, the future now presents a real opportunity for growth, away from the limitations it imposes. Each object she keeps in her bag represents a reminder of what she has achieved in silence, facing the pressures and challenges of everyday life. As she organizes her belongings, Katie reflects on what she really wants for her life. Dinner that night becomes a watershed, showing her that she possesses strengths and abilities that Will and others around her don't yet fully recognize. She feels freedom beginning to emerge, fueled by the certainty that new possibilities will arise. With her bags packed, Katie makes one last pass through the mansion. She walks through the corridors with a serene gaze, silently saying goodbye to the environment that, for so long, seemed to be her only space. Now, however, each step represents a step forward towards a future where her voice and ideas will have value and respect. The next morning, while Katie is organizing her last belongings, her phone rings. She checks the number and, with surprise, identifies the contact of one of the investors present at the dinner the night before. Mr. Lewis, whose look of curiosity and respect for her had already aroused a sense of trust, was now looking for a direct conversation. Katie answered, trying to hide the surprise in her voice. On the other end of the line, Mr. Lewis's tone sounds friendly but firm, indicating a proposal that he intends to make bluntly. Katie, I watched you yesterday and I was impressed by your outlook on business and social responsibility. I was wondering if you would agree to work with me and my team. Katie listens to the proposal in silence, trying to assimilate the meaning of this unexpected offer. She knows that the opportunity he is offering represents a significant change in her life, something far beyond her previous duties at Will's mansion. At the same time, she recognizes that Lewis's invitation didn't come by chance. He sees qualities in her that, until then, had remained hidden from most people. Mr. Lewis, thank you for your confidence, Katie replies with a firmness that reflects her decision. I accept the opportunity with great honor. With her decision made, Katie feels a renewed energy. The experience at dinner and the conversation with Lewis reveal her value, and she feels ready to explore new paths. She leaves the mansion with a firm step, aware that this departure symbolizes the beginning of a new stage, where she will be able to grow and develop skills without being limited to an imposed role. As she walks out of the front door, Katie takes one last look at the place that for so long has represented her routine and her limits. Will's presence, with its restrictive expectations, no longer defines who she is or how far she can go. Lewis's proposal offers an environment where her ideas and opinions will be recognized, and she determinedly moves forward to find that space. With each step, Katie distances herself from the past and, with a discreet smile, makes room for new conquests, now knowing that her voice is her greatest power. While Katie starts her new job with Mr. Lewis, Will faces a very different reality. The rigid control he has always imposed on his company now has serious consequences. In his relentless pursuit of profit and immediate results, Will ignores signs of internal wear and tear and employee dissatisfaction. His business partners are beginning to notice the instability in his decisions and are questioning the future of the company. The discontent in his corporate environment becomes evident, and Will finds himself isolated in meetings where, before, his word was respected without question. Now many of the board members and colleagues are hesitant to follow his proposals, seeing in them a lack of long-term vision. His impulsive behavior is seen as an obstacle to the company's sustainable development. While trying to turn the situation around, Will finds it difficult to come up with solutions that balance financial interests with the need for stability. He sees no alternatives other than short-term strategies which, for him, represent the only way to secure the profits he prioritizes so much. However, these choices lead to a vicious circle of temporary results and even greater pressures. The crisis intensifies when one of his most important contracts is canceled without warning. This unexpected loss shatters Will's image and generates repercussions among other business partners who come to see the company as a growing risk. Each impulsive decision only reinforces the perception that he prioritizes quick wins without valuing lasting relationships or the trust built up over the years. In the midst of this turmoil, Will remembers the dinner with the investors and Katie's words. Her vision, focused on social impact and responsibility towards the environment, represents exactly what he has avoided throughout his career. However, a seed of doubt begins to grow. For the first time, He questions whether his cold, calculating approach really supports the growth he so desperately seeks. As he tries to find a way out, he realizes that his surroundings, once full of allies, are becoming increasingly hostile. The crisis forces him to face a reality that he has avoided facing. His empire is beginning to show cracks, and he doesn't know if he has the skills to deal with it without changing his stance. One rainy morning, Will enters the meeting room without realizing that a surprise awaits him. He finds the board members and some new faces sitting at the table, including Katie, now in an influential position, representing the company that has acquired part of his business. Will feels an immediate shock, unable to hide the impact her presence makes. Katie, however, remains calm and firm, displaying a professional attitude that radiates confidence. She looks at him with serenity, as if this meeting is an opportunity to reaffirm the decision she made when she accepted Lewis's offer. For her, the moment represents a milestone, proof that her determination and vision can reach spaces that previously seemed unattainable. Want to understand the transformative power of stories like Will and Katie's? Download the free ebook, The Secret of Mature Romance Stories, and get inspired for your journey. The silence in the room becomes dense, and the glances between the counselors reflect the tension. Will, still processing the impact, adjusts his posture and tries to pull himself together. He knows that any sign of weakness could strengthen Katie's position and compromise his own authority. So he adopts an assertive tone, trying to demonstrate control of the situation. "Welcome, Katie. I'm surprised you're here, but let's focus on the company's interests," he declares with a controlled tone, as if this reunion wouldn't shake him. Katie replies with a firm nod and a slight smile. "I agree, Will. Our goal here goes far beyond personal disputes. We're looking for results that truly reflect the potential of this company," she says, with an assurance that silences any attempt at provocation. The meeting continues, and Will realizes that Katie's every word reflects a depth of knowledge and strategic vision that he, in his relentless pursuit of quick profits, ignores. She discusses social impact and sustainability initiatives, topics which to him sound like distractions, but which to the board members represent new opportunities. As the meeting progresses, Will feels increasing pressure. With each comment from Katie, he sees the differences between their approaches. He realizes that his obsession with control and immediate profit no longer resonates with the long-term vision she presents. This reality provokes a restlessness that he tries to disguise. But Katie's confident presence continues to challenge him. At the end of the meeting, he realizes that the control he had cherished so much is beginning to slip out of his hands. Will leaves the meeting with heavy steps, feeling the pressure of a reality he tries to ignore. Katie's every word, every idea she presented in that room echoes in his mind. For the first time, he sees his own leadership in a new light. The values he has always prioritized, quick profit and centralized authority, begin to seem insufficient in the face of the inspiring vision she defends. Later, alone in his office, he looks at the piles of reports and contracts scattered across his desk. The same decisions that he once saw as proof of his entrepreneurial skill now seem small and empty. Katie, with her calm demeanor and out-of-the-box ideas, awakens in him a restlessness that won't go away. He finally wonders if his methods are leading him to the success that really matters. During a brief pause, Will mentally revisits the dinner with the investors. He remembers Katie's strong presence and the clarity with which she defended the importance of initiatives that go beyond profit. He, who has always despised these distractions, begins to recognize that these same ideas may represent what his company needs to survive. The reflection becomes deeper when he sees a notification in his email, a new board meeting, scheduled at the request of investors. He reads the message carefully and realizes that the agenda includes reevaluating his role as the company's leader. Reality confronts him forcefully, and he feels the weight of his past choices. Every decision made without considering the real impact, every opportunity to listen that he ignored now comes back with overwhelming force. The realization of his fragility frightens him. The control he held begins to crumble, and the thought of losing what he has built brings an anguish that he tries to contain. Will, who has always seen leadership as an exercise in imposition, is faced with the possibility that true success may require empathy and connection, qualities he has neglected throughout his career. With the meeting approaching, he realizes that he must choose between two directions: insist on his old practices or open himself up to a transformation that involves letting go of his ego. Katie, with her new vision, appears as a mirror of everything he doesn't yet possess. Will feels the pressure of the new meeting approaching. He reviews his strategies, looks for ideas that could reverse his situation, and tries to find arguments to support his leadership. However, each proposal seems empty in the face of what he now recognizes as a deep flaw in his approach. Over the course of the evening, he decides to confront his restlessness. One thought sticks in his mind: seek help. For the first time, he considers that he might need guidance from someone who sees the world differently from him, and that person, he knows, is Katie. He hesitates, reflecting on what this step represents for someone so used to commanding and resisting outside influences. But the weight of the crisis pushes him to act. The next morning, he sends a direct and frank message to Katie, asking to meet her. He chooses words that show his sincerity, expressing his willingness to listen to her. Katie replies promptly, and they arrange to meet in the cafe of a community center, an environment far removed from corporate formalities, which for her represents much more than business. At the agreed time, Will arrives and is surprised by the simplicity of the space. He observes Katie, who is already waiting for him, with a calm and friendly expression. When he sits down, he takes a deep breath and decides to expose his difficulties bluntly, recognizing that his leadership style faces limits. Katie listens attentively, without passing judgment. Instead, she suggests that he take part in a social project in partnership with the company, aimed at supporting women in vulnerable situations. She believes that this experience could transform his view of leadership, allowing him to see the real impact of his actions outside the corporate world. Will, reluctant at first, agrees to take part, even though his vision of the value of such a project remains confused. However, he realizes that this opportunity represents a chance to break out of the cycle of impulsive decisions and to see the world from a perspective that challenges his own logic. Katie makes it clear that this process requires commitment, patience, and a fresh look at the role of a leader. She ends the conversation by reaffirming that true growth involves serving and supporting those around you. With this new direction, Will begins an unexpected journey, a path where he can confront his beliefs and perhaps find a new version of himself. Will arrives at the social project indicated by Katie, not knowing what to expect. The simple, welcoming atmosphere contrasts with the luxury of his corporate meetings and the comfort of his mansion. He observes the people around him, women of different ages and backgrounds, each with their own story of struggle and overcoming. Will feels a sense of strangeness at first, not understanding how their presence there could influence his leadership. One of the project coordinators, noticing his hesitation, invites him to take part in a conversation. Will sits down, attentive to the group that has gathered to share experiences and exchange support. Each story he hears carries a burden of suffering and overcoming that he never imagined. He sees, for the first time, the impact of business choices on the lives of real people, far beyond the numbers he always values. A young mother, Anna, tells of the difficulties of supporting her children after losing her job at a large company that, without warning, decided to cut staff. Her story resonates with Will in an unexpected way. He realizes that the impersonal decisions he makes can have a devastating impact on the lives of those who depend on stability to survive. As the conversation progresses, he is confronted with his own limited vision of success and begins to realize that reality is much more complex than he usually sees in his spreadsheets and reports. There, among those people, Will finds a truth that challenges his values and pushes him to question the way he leads his company. At the end of the conversation, an elderly woman approaches him and, with a firm look on her face, says, "Men like you have the power to change lives for better or worse. The question is, what do you intend to do with that power?" Her question echoes in his mind, provoking a feeling of unease that he tries to process. Will leaves the project that afternoon with a new perspective. Katie, with her insistence that he get to know this reality, reveals the importance of a leader who understands the human impact of his choices. He feels that his journey is just beginning. Will returns to the social project a few days later, this time with fewer reservations and more willingness to get involved in the activities. He now participates in the conversations with a more attentive and less distant gaze, absorbing every account and every detail of the stories shared. The experience is beginning to change the way he sees the role of a leader, offering a perspective he has avoided for so long. Ready to discover a secret that can open doors to a new chapter? The Secret of Mature Romance Stories is free for the first to download. Take advantage and get inspired. While accompanying a group taking part in training workshops, Will comes across Julia, a young woman who, at just 20 years old, is struggling to support her young son and sick mother. Julia's story and her determination awaken in him an empathy he rarely feels. He realizes that the young woman's strength comes not from a quest for profit or recognition, but from the need to create a decent future for her family. During a pause, Julia approaches him and comments without hesitation, "The company that supports us is the reason I still have hope. This work gives me the strength to carry on." Will feels the impact of her words as a real weight, something that goes far beyond the financial targets he sets himself. He reflects on the difference the project makes to these people's lives, and a sense of responsibility grows within him. For the first time, he considers what it means to build a company that values social impact as much as economic success. At the end of the visit, Katie meets him to find out his impressions of the project. He greets her with a nod and shares his reflections, expressing the need to reevaluate the company's role in the community. Katie observes his transformation with a slight smile of approval, realizing that Will is finally beginning to understand the essence of responsible leadership. She challenges him to take these lessons into the everyday life of the company, transforming his actions into practical initiatives that promote social well-being. He, still reflecting on the depth of the change he is experiencing, agrees to develop a plan to integrate community projects into the company's operations. At the end of the meeting, he says goodbye to Katie with a new sparkle in his eye. The experience of the project transforms his vision of success, and he feels ready to begin a new journey where the value of each decision is measured not just by results, but by the real impact on the lives it touches. As the weeks go by, Will becomes more and more committed to the social project. He starts visiting the community center regularly, attends meetings, and follows the progress of the participants. The interaction with these people teaches him to see beyond financial interests, and he realizes that his concept of leadership changes with every experience he has with the project. Will approaches Maria, a lady who leads a group of women in the project. Maria looks at him with an analytical eye, almost as if she is evaluating his intentions. After a few visits, she decides to share part of her story with him, revealing how her participation in the project transforms the lives of her family and many other women in the community. She describes the daily challenges they face and how the support they receive renews their hope. "We want to build something for the future, something that inspires our children to believe that they too can have a better life," says Maria, with a determined glint in her eye. Her words touch Will deeply. He recognizes that leadership means creating opportunities and supporting dreams that, until then, seemed impossible. For the first time, he understands the importance of servant leadership, which is dedicated to uplifting others and creating a foundation of trust and purpose for the entire community. Will, inspired by the stories and challenges shared in the project, decides to apply this new vision to his company. He begins to create a strategic plan to include social initiatives in corporate operations, promoting actions that prioritize human development and respect for the environment in which the company operates. He understands that true success comes from the integration of purpose and achievement, and he wants to transform his company into a model of social impact. With each meeting with Katie, he shows more confidence and clarity about the values he wants to embody. She sees the depth of his transformation and encourages him to continue expanding his vision. For her, Will's journey represents more than just a change in thinking. It is confirmation that true leaders are those who not only seek success, but leave a legacy of value. From that moment on, Will made a commitment to build a legacy that goes far beyond financial results. He wants to become a leader who inspires, an example of resilience and responsibility. Will's transformation begins to be reflected in company meetings. He brings his new ideas with conviction and proposes changes aimed at employee well-being and social responsibility. However, he faces resistance from some board members who are skeptical about this new approach. For them, an exclusive focus on profits is the only guarantee of growth. Will, now with a broader vision, stands firm and presents data to support his initiatives. He demonstrates how social projects and sustainable practices can strengthen the company's image and attract investors committed to sustainable development. Little by little, his determination wins the respect of some board members who, despite their initial doubts, begin to see value in the ideas he proposes. Meanwhile, Katie follows his progress closely and is motivated by Will's attitude. She observes the change he represents for the corporate environment and realizes that his influence transforms not only the company, but also the way Will sees the role of a leader. With his confidence restored, he finally becomes someone willing to listen and consider perspectives he had previously rejected. During one of the most important meetings, one of the board members asks Will if he really believes that this change will bring concrete benefits to the company. Will answers clearly, explaining that sustainable success depends on a solid foundation of respect and responsibility. He emphasizes that by taking care of employees and the community, the company creates bonds of trust that strengthen productivity and attract loyal partners. His response makes a positive impact, and the looks around the table reflect a new admiration. For the first time, the board sees him not just as an executive in search of power, but as a leader committed to something greater. Will's vision inspires those around him, and the corporate environment begins to adapt to the new values he defends. At the end of the meeting, Katie approaches him and expresses her pride in the way he defends his ideals. Will thanks her, recognizing that without her encouragement and example, his transformation might never have taken place. He understands that the true value of a company lies in the people who make it up and the impact it leaves on society. Every day, the relationship between Will and Katie grows stronger. They share ideas and align their visions for the future of the company, sensing a mutual admiration that grows with each interaction. In addition to formal meetings, Will begins to invite Katie to more relaxed conversations, where they discuss not only business, but also the personal motivations and challenges that drive them. One afternoon after a long meeting, Will proposes lunch with Katie to talk about expanding the social projects. Over lunch, he feels comfortable enough to share details of his personal life, something rare for someone so private. He reveals the sacrifices he makes throughout his career, and how, in his quest for success, he ends up distancing himself from experiences that could give real meaning to his career. Katie listens with empathy and shares part of her own story, talking about the difficulties she faced before reaching her current position. She describes the path she took, the barriers she overcame, and how these experiences shaped her values. Katie's sincerity touches Will deeply, and he realizes that his admiration for her goes beyond professionalism. From that moment on, the two begin to spend more time together, exploring the city after meetings and discussing ideas for social impact projects. Will feels increasingly connected to Katie, recognizing in her qualities that he seeks in himself. He admires the resilience and passion she shows, and this feeling of admiration slowly turns into something deeper. Katie also notices the special bond that develops between them. She feels that Will is evolving in a genuine and authentic way, and begins to see him as someone who wants to build a life based on values that she respects so much. This closeness creates a space of mutual trust, where they both feel free to be vulnerable and express their true desires. At the end of one of these days, as they walk together in the park, Will thanks her for the transformative influence she has had on his life. He confesses that thanks to her, he is beginning to see the world in a way he never imagined. Katie smiles, recognizing the impact she really has. With his new vision of leadership firmly established, Will begins to systematically implement changes in the company. He creates teams dedicated to social projects and adopts policies that promote employee well-being, investing in benefits and training that help everyone develop their potential. The corporate culture is undergoing a visible transformation, and many employees are beginning to feel the positive impact of these new guidelines. During a board meeting, Will presents the plan to expand community projects and explains how these actions strengthen the company's reputation. Some board members who had previously shown resistance now express support and enthusiasm, realizing the tangible results that Will's change of attitude brings. He remains firm in his convictions, ensuring that the company preserves the balance between its financial objectives and its commitment to social responsibility. Throughout the process, Katie continues to accompany him closely, offering valuable insights and encouraging every step he takes. She proudly observes the way Will deals with challenges and transforms the company's vision, now focused on results that encompass human and social aspects. Together, they work to create an organizational structure that promotes both innovation and respect for the principles she defends. At an event to celebrate the new initiatives, Will addresses the employees with a speech that reflects his transformation. He talks about the importance of each employee to the company's growth and the impact that everyone together has on the community. The sincerity in his words makes a strong impression, and many employees feel inspired by the renewed leadership he represents. At the end of the event, Will meets with Katie and shares with her his satisfaction at seeing the company thrive in a way that is aligned with the values he espouses. He expresses his gratitude for her constant support, recognizing that without Katie's encouragement and vision, he would not have achieved this change. She greets him with a smile and reaffirms her confidence in his ability to lead with purpose. Do you believe that new possibilities of love and reunion are within your reach? Download the ebook, The Secret of Mature Romance Stories now, available for free to first-timers. Will understands that his journey continues, but now he's on a solid, clear path. Alongside Katie, he is committed to upholding the ideals they both cherish and turning every achievement into a legacy that will inspire future generations. Over time, the relationship between Will and Katie deepens, going beyond professional barriers. They find a rare balance between their partnership at work and their growing affection for each other. This special bond further strengthens the dynamic between them, creating an atmosphere of trust and mutual understanding that is reflected in their work. Will feels a deep admiration for Katie and gradually realizes that the feeling goes beyond gratitude or respect. She represents a transformative force in his life, someone who inspires him to become a better version of himself, both personally and professionally. He is attracted by the determination, compassion, and integrity she demonstrates in every situation. Katie, for her part, also notices her bond with Will growing in intensity. She observes his evolution with affection and respect, recognizing the sincerity in every choice he makes. On their journey together, they discover that they share dreams and goals beyond the company. The vision of a future based on values and purpose unites them, and they both begin to consider the possibility of building something bigger in their lives. One quiet afternoon, after a productive meeting, Will invites her for a walk around the city. They talk about their ambitions and the positive impact they want to have on the world. Will opens his heart and admits how much her presence changes the way he sees life. Katie listens with a serene smile, understanding the depth of what he is sharing. As they walk, Will holds Katie's hand and, without hesitation, expresses his desire to share life alongside her, not just as work partners, but as companions in every step they both decide to take. He talks about the love he feels and his desire to build a story together, based on the values and mission they both embrace. Katie responds with a loving and sincere look. She shares the same sentiment, knowing that the path they have traveled is preparing them for something greater. At that moment, they both recognize that the connection they cultivate is unique and genuine. The love that unites them becomes, for them, a new beginning, a journey that they follow together with purpose and passion. Months later, Will and Katie decide to make their union official in an intimate ceremony, surrounded by friends, colleagues, and members of the community who benefit from the social projects they both support. The event takes place in a simple and welcoming space, reflecting the values they uphold and which become the basis of their lives. The atmosphere of the celebration is marked by the presence of people who share the ideal of a fairer and more supportive society. During the ceremony, Will gives an emotional speech, thanking everyone present and highlighting Katie's fundamental role in his transformation. He talks about the love he feels and the profound impact she has had on his life, making her his greatest inspiration. For him, Katie represents not only a companion on his journey, but a living example of the values he strives to embody in every decision he makes. Katie, for her part, shares her own words with the same affection and sincerity. She talks about the admiration she feels for Will's courage, who, throughout his journey, learns to let go of his ego and lead with his heart. She thanks him for his partnership and the trust he places in her, and reaffirms their commitment to building a life together based on respect and the constant search for positive impact. The ceremony, marked by smiles and tears of joy, reflects the beauty of the connection they are building. Friends, family, and employees witness the start of a new phase for Will and Katie, a phase where love and a life mission are intertwined in a common purpose. The company they both lead becomes an example of social and ethical responsibility, serving as an inspiration to other organizations and leaders seeking to transform society. Over time, Will and Katie's work stands out in the market, and the company gains recognition for its sustainable practices and commitment to community well-being. They expand their social projects, bringing opportunities to different regions and promoting initiatives that change lives. The impact of their actions becomes a legacy that, for them, represents true success. At the end of the day, Will and Katie walk together through the ceremony site, observing the people celebrating with them. They hold hands, certain that together they can achieve any goal. The love, respect, and determination they both cultivate ensure that their legacy goes far beyond business, touching lives and inspiring new generations to believe in the power of humanized and transformative leadership.